Facebook, book a face. Face-ache. Whether you love or hate Facebook, they bought Oculus in March 2014 for $2.4 billion. At the time, much to everyone's despair, and it's fair to say, very much like my videos these days, the acquisition was a slow burner. But 7 years later, mate, face-ache have delivered the two most successful VR headsets on the market today. These two, the Oculus Quest 2 and the Oculus Rift S. And mate, it ain't even close. These two devices alone represent 45% of all the VR headsets in use today, as polled by the Steam Hardware Survey, with 23% of all VR users using this, the Oculus Quest 2, and 22% using the Rift S. And what's more, mate, they're both exactly the same price right now, so you can kind of see how confusing this is to someone who isn't relentlessly following what's going on in the VR world. You know, one's a Rift, one's a Quest. They're both the same price. They're both equally as popular as each other. So does that mean they both do exactly the same thing? Are they as good as each other? Are they much of a muchness? No, no, not really. And if you're thinking about buying one or the other, well, you should probably decide quick, mate, because the Rift S ain't going to be on sale for much longer. The Quest 2 is by design a VR headset that works standalone. It's equipped with its own graphics processing unit, that being the Snapdragon XR2 system on a chip. It's got its own onboard storage, it's wireless. It does have an optional purchase to make it a cabled VR headset, but it generally runs on an integrated battery. It requires a Facebook account to function at all. And from a EULA point of view, an end user license agreement, you can only use it for personal use. It was released late 2020, currently sells for $299 or $399 quid, depending on which storage option you go for. The Rift S, on the other hand, mate, it's purely a wired tethered headset. It requires a decent PC to function at all, and all the work is handled by that PC. It's got no onboard VR compute power, doesn't have a battery, but you can use an Oculus account rather than a Facebook account. And it's widely used within various industries for business use. And it was released in early 2019. Currently also sells for around 299 quid. So that doesn't really help. It doesn't really have differentiated. So we'll go a bit more granular. We'll start with the visuals. So the Quest 2 has an LCD panel per eye with a combined resolution of 3664 by 1920, whereas the Rift S, mate, well, that's only got one single LCD panel which spans across the entire headset with a combined resolution of 2560 by 1440. The Quest 2 also has better adjustable IPD with 3 stepped lens distances. The Rift S, though, has NOUT. It's got NOUT because it's got a single panel fixed. It's got a software IPD compensated, but mate, it's as good as NOUT. The Quest 2 also wins on visual refresh rates. It can do either 60, 72 or 90 Hz, with 120 Hz rumored to be coming soon in an update. Rift S, well, that's locked to 80 Hz refresh rate only. So the conclusion there, mate, Quest 2 wins this category, but it's complicated. I'll explain in the final conclusion. REIT, tracking. They both use 6 degrees of freedom inside-out tracking, all taken care of by the headset. You don't need external sensors or anything like that to track. On paper, this category is a tie. I'm going to make it a tie, but I'm going to give a dishonorable mention to the horrendous tracking issues that I get with my Rift S when I'm in this room. And only this room. You know what I mean? Any other room, it's fine. Downstairs in my living room, it's fine. In here, it loses its mind. I don't know if it's because it's next to reflective surfaces or big black canvases. I don't know. It just loses its mind in here, and it's a struggle to work in this room. Controllers, well, when you look at the controllers, apart from them being different colours, they both, on face value, look exactly the same. They're both tried and tested layouts. They both take a AA battery per controller. They're light, they're comfortable, pretty easy to use. They've got the same buttons, so both controllers do functionally exactly the same thing. They're ergonomically slightly different shaped, but to be honest, mate, most people on a blind test wouldn't notice the difference if you put them in their hands. What is different, though, and this is subjective, is the A, B, and the XY buttons on the Quest 2 controllers have been kind of raised up slightly. Both those buttons aren't as passively reachable on the Quest. Just me. I know, I just found that like an unnecessarily frustrating differentiation to make from the Rift S layout. But personally, it's subjective. It's my opinion. I preferred the feel of the Rift S controllers in my hand. It was marginal. But objectively, they're functionally identical. Therefore, it's just a tie. The head strap, though, wow. Okay, I thought this wasn't even up for debate until I watched someone else's video on the same kind of a topic. And that person had the complete opposite take on this to me. The Quest 2, it's got a flimsy, elastic, clumsily adjustable Velcro strap, whilst the Rift S has like a plastic halo band with clamp force adjustment and a Velcro strap. For me, the Rift S is miles better, but then apparently not everyone agrees, so it's okay. The Quest 2, it straps fine, but if you try and put the Quest 2 on someone else's head, mate, they've lost interest in what you're trying to show them in VR by the time you spent the entire weekend faffing on with the strap trying to make it fit their head. Now, for me, the Rift S head strap is miles better. For audio, they both have built-in speakers. They both have headphone jacks. The sound quality on one is equally as tragic as the other. So for this one, it's a tie. Comfort, very subjective is comfort, but both have these foam-based sweat and makeup sponges for a face gasket. The stock Rift S gasket was a bit too thin out of the box, but the halo band kind of made up that and allowed the Rift S to just be marginally more comfortable out of the box. But you can, and I would strongly recommend that you do buy an aftermarket PU leather gasket, which are, on it, mate, they're mandatory, especially if you share a headset with someone else. The Quest 2, though, is lighter, which from what I've seen and heard, I think people just attribute that to being more comfortable. You know, it's lighter, therefore it's more comfortable. And the Sweet Market Down is a winner in that category. But for me, the head strap let the Quest 2 down. It sagged. The device sags down on my face because I could never get the head strap to support it properly. And as a result, I was forever adjusting the Quest 2 on my face to get the sweet spot, the visual sweet spot right. So for me, I just found the Rift S to be more comfortable. Apps and games, really, well, the fact that the Quest 2 can be optionally cabled to a PC makes these two devices quite similar. Both can run your Steam games, and in theory only, both devices can run VR solutions from business apps. The fact that the Quest 2, though, is natively a wireless device means that there's an entire ecosystem of apps and games just for the Quest that you store on the device and run it standalone. You can't do that on the Rift S. So the Quest 2 wins this category because of that extra standalone ecosystem. Right, okay, so even though that resulted in a bunch of wins and a bunch of ties that probably don't make the difference between whether you buy this or don't to most people, these two headsets are still very different. I'll try and brief this down. If you're looking for a VR headset to use for work, right, like to put in a VR room for design reviews, for customer presentations, marketing, sales, that kind of thing, between these two, well, you have to get the Rift S. Facebook just do not allow you to use the Quest 2 for commercial purposes. I'm still not sure how the likes of Gravity Sketch, and it's sketchy AF, we're still in early access, but we're charging people for a professional subscription. Get away with that. Do you know what I mean? And don't forget, they're not going to be selling the Rift S for much longer. So if you are needing one for work, I would suggest thinking about buying one now. And one would be most grateful if you'd use my Amazon associate link, which I've conveniently pasted for you into the description and top pinned comment of this video. Purchases help support the channel. Thank you. But Neil, didn't you say that the Quest 2 had better visuals, and isn't better visuals better for business applications and professional VR stuff? Well, first, isn't it annoying when people make up questions and then ask themselves questions and then proceed to answer their own questions? Second, it doesn't really matter for business stuff because trying to get a Quest 2 to work in an office environment would be an utter menace because of needing personal Facebook login. That would probably override that. Third, you're not even allowed to use that. If Facebook detected you using a personal Facebook account for business, they can brick the entire headset. Fourth, sure, having greater resolution is better for visuals, which is better for almost everything in VR. But the greater the resolution, the greater the PC you need, which is all a moot point because you're just not allowed to do it anyway. Honestly, I wouldn't risk it, mate. So for anything business related, just get a Rift S. You know, you can still use an Oculus account rather than that personal Facebook account. You can just bypass all of that nonsense. And the fact that all you need to get it working with the Rift S is that display and USB port. You just rig the Rift S up to a decent laptop and present VR literally anywhere. You could do that with a Quest 2, but you're not allowed. There are other non-Oculus VR devices that also allow you to do that, obviously, with the laptop, but they're far more expensive. And this is a Quest versus Rift video, after all. Me personally, well, I've bought and positioned numerous Rift S's into my day job for business use, the likes of collaborative design review tools, sales and marketing platforms, back in the olden days when we could actually go to trade shows and interact with people. And it's performed flawlessly. And just because they're going to stop selling the Rift S soon doesn't mean it's dead and buried. It's still going to be usable for long enough. But Neil, if I wanted to break the law and use the Quest 2 for business anyway, you said it was wireless and only the Rift S was powered from a PC. Well, sure I did, but I also said you can optionally cable the Quest 2 to a PC. So in theory, any and all business and pro VR applications that would work through the Rift S will actually also work through the Quest 2. So does that make the Quest 2 exactly the same thing as the Rift S then? Yes, it does. So if you can cable the Quest 2 to a PC, which makes it do what a Rift S does, and the Quest 2 has better specs than the Rift S, that sounds like the Quest 2 is essentially superseding and replacing the Rift S. Yes, it sort of is. So does the Rift S do anything that the Quest 2 doesn't do? Yes, you can confidently and reliably use it for business or commercial purposes without the risk of having your operations hijacked at his Zuckerberg's pleasure. But forgetting all about business stuff, is there any reason at all to think about buying a Rift S instead of a Quest 2? Right, well, this is where it's up to you. Right, functionally, no. And honestly, at this point, I'd probably just say, just get a Quest 2. Just get a Quest 2, right? It is better than the Rift S at being an all-rounder. But think about this. They're both 299 quid at the base level. But that head strap's awful on the Quest 2. And it's 50 quid to upgrade to the Elite strap. Now you're in it for 350 quid. Then you'll need to buy the 5-meter long USB-C cable to make the Quest 2 that optionally PC-powered version of itself, allowing it to do what the Rift S does. You ain't finding a 5-meter long USB-C cable for cheaper than 30 quid on Amazon. Now you're in it for 380 quid or 440 quid if you bought the official Oculus cable. And that makes this horse a different colour, mate, because it's now a 299 quid Rift S versus a 380 or a 440 quid Quest 2. But Neil, why am I doing this? But Neil, the visual specs are higher on the Quest 2, so isn't that worth the extra cost then? Short answer, yes. Other answer, right. Even though they can both be cabled VR headsets, the Rift S and the Quest 2 work in very different ways, mate. VR headsets, for all intents and purposes, they're monitors attached to your face, right? The Rift S connects to the PC using a DisplayPort cable, whereas the Quest 2, well, that only uses a USB cable. When was the last time you saw a PC monitor connect to a PC using just USB? Never. Right? The Quest 2 is basically streaming compressed video feed from the PC to the headset over USB. It's encoded at one end in slices and then decoded at the other end. And there's scope for increased latency and video artifacts. Lots of incredibly impressive engineering's gone into the render pipeline to make this absolutely minimal, but it's absolutely noticeable. Not so much the latency, that's on nigh on imperceptible, but you can see compression artifacts in the Quest 2 when using the link cable at factory default settings. It's minimal, and it's more prominent on darker scenes with faster moving visuals, as is how it goes with bitrate in videos, but once you've seen it, you kind of can't unsee it. Does it matter? Not really. All I'm saying is those visual artifacts do somewhat negate the increased resolution over the Rift S. And at the end of the day, sure, you're paying more for the Quest 2, but with that, you're also getting this entirely different means of using the headset by ways of it being completely wireless and running on a battery. It's kind of like a 2-in-1 in that respect. You know, like a Windows 2-in-1 tablet is a 2-in-1 VR headset. So at the end of this all, which one should you get? Get the Rift S for business use. Get the Quest 2 for everything else. Unless you're a hardcore videophile, that's even a word, and want the purest of all the frames, you may be surprised at how often you find yourself using the Quest 2 in wireless mode. You know, you might think you won't, but you might. Sure, the VR experience isn't as pure as it is with the Rift S, but that versatility to most people is worth the price premium. Oculus are spending as well their R&D budget on the Quest line now, with the Rift S becoming pretty much obsolete. So my advice would be to get the Quest 2 unless you're buying for work. Right, that'll do. If you want to check out the current pricing of these devices on Amazon, put my associate links in the description and the top comment. Purchases made through those links massively, and I really do mean massively, support the work that I do. Use the Global One link if you're outside of the US or the UK, and that'll redirect you to your local Amazon store. So if you found this video useful on your way out, please do consider notifying YouTube that you liked it so they know to tell more people about it. If you found me inoffensive and want to see more of what I do, subscribe and hit the bell so YouTube knows to tell you more about it. Thanks for watching. That's all I've got.